Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time of the day you are listening to this, and you're welcome to another episode of the V020 with Daniel podcast, O Ye Fluid One. Yes, last week podcast was a blast. Last week episode was a blast for me because, I talked about a couple of things and for some reason, some people thought I was attacking women. Like, you don't actually listen to the things I was saying, fam. But I admit I should apologize, and I am apologizing if something there came across wrong. I wasn't trying to attack anybody, but I meant every single thing that I said. And before you start to say, he's wrong, kind of think about it, because this is coming from a guy's perspective, right? So kind of think about it first. And if there's any misunderstanding there, then, express that, okay, this is a misunderstanding. So anyway, that's that. For this week's episode, was supposed to be last week's episode actually, but when I was editing it, I kind of lost a bit of data. I didn't like the output of it all. So I decided, I'm going to re-record that, and I ended up uploading last week's episode. So yeah, this episode was requested by a fellow fluid one, yes, a member of the volatile community, yeah, and his name is Michael. Everybody say yay for Michael. You can find him on Instagram at bkelz, that's at BKELZ, at bkelz on Instagram. Give him a shout out, screenshot this, put it on your stories, tag bkelz, tag me, and put the hashtag the fluid gang. The fluid gang. Remember, that is our hashtag. And okay, so today's episode, I'm going to be talking about imposter syndrome. I'm going to be talking about what it is, the types, what usually causes it, you understand how it makes people feel and make people respond, and also ways to cope with it, because the truth of imposter syndrome is you can never fully get rid of it. You simply learn ways to mitigate the effect and cope with it. So don't go anywhere, because you are in for a treat. I kept looking in the mirror till I see myself, ayy. Hey lover, will you blow my cover, cause I'm not myself, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I look like a stranger in the bathroom light. I keep looking in the mirror till I see myself, ayy. Hey lover, will you blow my cover, cause I'm not myself, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I look like a stranger in the bathroom light. Keep looking in the mirror till I see myself, ayy. Okay, so that was Mirror by Ida, two wonderful female singers. Ida is spelled I-D-E-R. You guys should check out the song. It's actually quite awesome. But moving on to today's topic, and also if you notice some particular sounds, maybe people voices or things like that, I'm not recording at home where I usually record. I'm actually in my office, though I have the door closed and the window closed. You never can tell. Maybe the click of the chair and something can get in. I'll try to get all of that out, but sorry, you just, get a little bit of distracting sounds in the background. So moving on, what exactly is imposter syndrome? And I'm sure some of you have encountered the term imposter syndrome, maybe researched it, maybe you felt you were going through it before, So for this particular topic, I looked at various psychological, sites and write-ups like American Society of Psychology, if that's what it's called, the Very Well Mind. I watched a YouTube video, a TEDx talk by Lou Solomon, great person. She's the founder and CEO of Interact, and she gave a detailed explanation of what, imposter syndrome is. And I'd like to use the definition I got off the psychological website and then follow it up with what Lou Solomon said about imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is a psychological term referring to a pattern of behavior where people doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent, remember that word, persistent, often internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Which means it's basically just the experience of feeling like, you're fake, you're a fraud, even when all evidence points to the contrary. And now Lou Solomon said, imposter syndrome is like having a crappy best friend in your head who always says mean things about you. Like, imagine having that, a crappy best friend in your head who says mean things about you all the time. Like, that is not something you want to actually live with. Really, it is not. But before we go to the causes, let's talk about types, because there are actually types of imposter syndromes. that people, okay, maybe classifications of people with imposter syndrome, you understand, the behaviors they exhibit, and I didn't even know this, and reading this out, a lot of us are going to find ourselves in this. But before I get ahead of myself, let's get into this. Number one, perfectionist. The perfectionist is never satisfied. Really, they are never satisfied. Their work would always be better. In fact, every single work that they do is never good. The perfectionist always seeks the best, and even when they get the best is still not the best. There's always something better. Second one, the superhero. The superhero is kind of like falls under the category of the insecure helping the insecure. Understand? We are all insecure in one way or the other, and we all help each other, right? But this is different for the superhero. The superhero, due to feelings of inadequacy, always feels that they need to push themselves. They, even when they are sick, they are changed to a life support, they need 10,000 people to work, they will still feel they need to push themselves, even though everything in their life and everything in their body is screaming, no, you need to rest. No, they keep pushing themselves to work because they feel inadequate and they feel like they need to show up for everybody. They need to do things for everybody. If I don't do this, they are the kind of people that always act like as if they don't show up to work, everything is going to crash down. You keep hearing things like, if I don't show up, they won't be able to do this. If I don't show up, they won't be able to do that. Fam, you need to learn that life will go on without you. So you have to decide, is either you take a rest so that you can come back to life, or life takes you to the rest. And when life takes you to the rest, that's permanent. Okay, let's move on. The third one, the expert. Now, the expert has to do with a little bit much more knowledge-based instead of doing-based. I don't know if I said that right or if that made sense. Anyway, the expert is always trying to learn more, but never satisfied with their understanding. Now, I tell my students, it's always good to seek knowledge, you understand. I myself, I try to seek knowledge every single day. I try to learn new things. But when you learn something new and you are never satisfied with something you learn, because there are some times where you are learning something and you need to be satisfied reaching a particular place. You cannot be an expert in everything. But no, somebody under IS syndrome exhibiting the expert kind of behavior would want to know everything. And for that kind of person, learning is never a thing of enjoyment or satisfaction. It's always a thing of having the upper hand, or always the thing of being the smartest person that ever walks into a room. You understand? Even though the person never went into the medical field, but once they start reading about something, they want to know everything about it to the point that they want to know more than the doctor, and that is not nice. We even see this oftentimes in Christian circles where, everybody wants a deep knowledge of everything, you understand? Everything has to have a deeper meaning. Everything has to have a deeper reference or inference or all that kind of stuff. And, sometimes the Bible is just simple and straightforward, where you just need to calm down and read it. Stick to what it says. But no, even when you say a verse that says Jesus swept, you find one brother or sister somewhere that will come and explain an epistle to you. Calm down now, fam. Calm down. Okay, let's move on to the last two. The natural genius. Now, the natural genius are those who set lofty goals for themselves. They set high goals for themselves, and they always collapse when they cannot achieve those goals the first time. These are the kind of people that always want everything to work the first time, and they don't, in their book, there's nothing like you fail to succeed or anything like that. There's nothing like, oh, you fail now and learn from your mistakes and then go on. No, these guys crash down the moment they are unable to do that one thing the first time. Whether it is riding a bicycle, they have to get it right the first time. Whether it is creating a computer application, they have to get it right the very first time. Like, that is the burden that imposter syndrome gives them. Then the last one, the soloist. Now, the soloist, a lot of us will find ourselves in this because a lot of us try to do things alone. And soloists are very, very individualistic and prefer to walk alone. Their self-worth, their self-esteem, the way they view themselves and the way they interact with the world is rooted in their productivity, is rooted in how productive they are. So they often reject offer of assistance. In other words, they believe most of the time that if they cannot do something that will take 5 people to do, if they can't do it alone, they are not worth it. You understand? They are not worth their job. They are not worth their skill. They are not worth everything. They are a fraud. They don't really know what they are doing there. And you might see yourself in maybe one of these types or even more than one, because personally, I see myself in the soloist. I see myself in the superhero, majorly those two. And, when I was researching for IS, I didn't even think, oh, I'm going to find myself here, you understand? But here I am, here. with you guys. So let's talk about what type of imposter syndrome you're under. Whichever one you're under, screenshots where you are listening to right now, go to your Instagram, post it to your stories, and tag me and type the type of imposter syndrome you are, whether it is perfectionist, the superhero, the expert, natural genius, the soloist. Remember, the IG tag is at volatile with Daniel. And don't worry, I don't have to explain to people what any of those words mean. I know what those words mean, and I'll jump into your DM and we'll discuss. Okay, so I already talked about what imposter syndrome is and, the types. But let's talk about the symptoms and the causes, you understand? Now, usually what causes imposter syndrome, you might be asking yourself. One of the main reasons for imposter syndrome is trauma. Trauma that comes from any serious conflict, whether conflict at home, conflict in school, all those kind of things. And all these trauma usually have a particular attribute to them, which is destructive criticism or negative criticism. Is the thing that makes you always, people that always question every single thing you've done, every single achievement, you understand? And you see this a lot at home sometimes between, when a girl is being raised, she sweeps the floor, there's always that one spot that she's probably going to miss, and then, she gets hounded for it. Or, a boy that is growing up, and boys are full of energy usually. Many kids are full of energy, and then they're expending their energy, they're playing, and then you make them feel bad for playing, or let's say they create something with blocks and stuff like that, trying to just be artistic or bring their imagination to life, and then you always be like, kiniko, can't you be reading your book and stuff like that? Or they even go to school and then they get, let's say, third position. That's actually a very good position to start with, and then you can grow up from there. But no, you start hearing things like, the people that got first, are they double-headed? You understand? Do they have 10 teachers? This and that. And, makes you feel like as if you never get anything right. You never get anything right. You never do anything right. You'll never be able to do anything right. And I felt like this for a long ass time. Oh God, I felt like this for a long ass time. Sometimes I still feel like that once in a while, but I just learned to shut it up because, man has grown. Hallelujah. Okay, sometimes it's actually not caused by drama. Sometimes we just get it into our heads that we are undeserving of success. We are undeserving of gratitude. We are undeserving of compliments and all those things. Sometimes I get compliments for episodes I, release, and then, it makes me feel somehow. Like sometimes I catch myself feeling undeserving of comments I get or, compliments I get. And I'm like, no, calm down, guy. You worked hard for this. I'm not talking about pride here. Remember in 2 episodes past when I was talking about habits, I quoted a quote from C.S. Lewis that said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. In other words, it's not you putting yourself down. It's just you not, making yourself the center of everything. That's humility. So, accept compliments. Accept compliments. Sometimes we get into our heads that we are so undeserving because we are constantly comparing ourselves to the success of others. I said this on my WhatsApp one time like that. I said, your growth probably doesn't look the same as my growth, but we are both growing. We need to recognize that both those things are called growth. We need to recognize it and normalize that kind of thinking. Understand? That makes us able to appreciate each other more and stop comparing ourselves to each other. Now, the symptoms are actually quite simple, and the symptoms are so regular that usually you cannot tell. Take, for instance, anxiety, perfectionism, self-doubt, fear of failure, you understand, underselling yourself and never accepting your value. These are usually the symptoms of imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome doesn't affect women more than it affects men. No, actually, imposter syndrome affects women and men equally. There is no disparity between it because it's not a gender thing, you understand? It's a psychological thing, and it's not even rooted in our biology. Also, the amount of people you think, have imposter syndrome, double it. If you are thinking 85%, double it. If you're thinking 100%, double it. Because many people have imposter syndrome and they don't even know that is what they have. A lot of us have gone through or are currently going through symptoms of imposter syndrome, and we don't even know that this is what is doing us. You understand? We just find that you created this awesome design and posted it on Instagram, and you never learned anything as a graphic designer, nothing, you just downloaded Canva and started experimenting. And people are like, oh my God, wow, this is awesome. But then the next thing, the first time you go, no, it's nothing. The second time you go, we thank God. The third time you go, it's simple. And those things sound like humility, but actually they are a false, very, very false sense of humility. We need to combat it. Those are very, very false senses of humility. When you meet somebody who is constantly downplaying compliments, who is constantly referring to other people when you point out their success, when you point out their accomplishments, that person is probably exhibiting behaviors of somebody with imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome isn't actually a psychological thing. It's just like a regular mind thing that people go through. Now, imposter syndrome has some particular lies, as pointed out by Lou Solomon. Number one, vulnerability is for losers. Vulnerability is for losers. You feel like, if people notice that, maybe I'm not good at this, some sort of weakness, you understand, they are just going to eat me raw, you understand. This is the wild, wild west. We have to be the king of the jungle and things like that. And that's a lie. Vulnerability can be a beautiful thing if well managed. Lie number two, a successful career leads to a successful life. Now, this might be contestable, but personally, I agree with Lou Solomon that, the success and happiness of your life shouldn't be rooted in how successful your career is, you understand? Because success in career can take a while, you understand? But happiness in life can take, quicker than your career to build. Number three, don't air your dirty laundry. And normally, dirty laundry, we use this to represent, your mistakes, errors, weaknesses and things like that. And obviously, you don't want to be oversharing or sharing these things with people that you do not trust. But having the belief that, if somebody sees you make a mistake, if somebody sees you tabon, if somebody sees you, do riot, color riot or something like that, that they're automatically going to shame you and recognize that, oh my God, this person is not as wise as we thought. Oh my God, this person is not. No, fam. See, the thing is, there are always going to be people who are disapproving of you, but that doesn't need to be the narrative that you live by. Now, another lie of imposter syndrome is that talkers rule the world. Talkers rule the world. And that, again, is contestable. Instead of just talkers, we should say brilliance rules the world, because some people aren't talkers. Like, take for instance, I'm a podcaster, so I need to talk a lot normally, right? And I generally talk a lot normally in my circles, but when I'm outside, I usually, I'm usually shy, well collected and everything. But in my full circles, or in my close circles, I am, I'm always talking. I'm contributing and all that kind of thing. So the best thing to do is to listen for brilliance. Listen for brilliance. No, don't listen for who's talking the loudest, which is what is plaguing us in the world today. We are always looking for those who are loud. We should look for those who are talking brilliantly. We should look to the minority, because that's where you usually find brilliance. Now, what about its effects? What does it push people to? Usually it pushes people to anxiety, depression, which a lot of us have gone through. Some might be going through it right now. If you know anybody that's going through depression, please reach out to them. Addiction, yes, addiction. Some people get addicted to performance enhancing pills. I'm not talking about Viagra here. Calm down. They get addicted to some drugs or pills that, give them extra strength, keeps them awake extra, just to be able to do more extra work that they don't need to be doing by that particular hour. Then you have, stored projects. Yes, those ideas that have never come to fruition. If you're like me and you have those, please raise up your hand. Hello. Then unfinished masterpieces and an unhappy life. I think an unhappy life is an unfinished masterpiece, because, getting a happy life is a masterpiece we all should aspire to, you understand? And you build that step by step, you understand? But like I said before, it's built faster than a successful career. Okay, so finally, let's talk about how to cope with imposter syndrome, because this is something that, again, a lot of us go through and we don't really know, we can't really identify it, or rather we don't know how to identify it and things like that. And there's one thing I'd like to say before I begin. I think Lou Solomon said this. I don't know whether I found it in the blog or Lou Solomon. It says the experience of doing well at something doesn't change the belief. Yeah, imposter syndrome gives you this belief that, you are not worthy. You are not worth it. You understand? And then you do well at something. But like I said, you keep downplaying and underselling yourself. So doing well at something doesn't necessarily change imposter syndrome. The insecurity of imposter syndrome is rooted in the fact that usually your actions don't necessarily mitigate it. Do you understand? So how to face it? There are 3 sections to this. First off, identify the voice, that voice in your head that is constantly telling you how unskillful you are and all those things. Identify that voice. Next is identify the symptoms. When that voice comes, do you start getting anxious? Do you start getting depressed? You need to know all these things. Identify the actions you take to those symptoms. You understand? Identify the actions you take to that voice. When that voice starts coming, do you automatically, start putting yourself into work? Do you automatically start seeing errors in something that you already made well? You understand? It's like cooking jollof rice and then you now realize, oh, this isn't that. This side is not as red as this place. You understand? This thing will be sweet in the end. You understand? Whoever you are going to put it on the plate for probably won't notice. But no, you want perfect jollof rice, which come and meet Yoruba people to teach you how to cook it. Amen. Amen. Okay. Then last thing you want to identify is the effect it has on your mental health. The effect. Do you get more anxious? Do you get depressed? Even physically, you understand? Does it make you tired? Do you start? Sometimes you get sick because of how much you think, you understand? So you want to identify those things. Identify the voice, identify the symptoms, identify the actions you take, and identify the effects that they have on you. Second thing you want to do is ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions like, what core beliefs do I hold about myself? What do I really believe about myself? Do I really believe these thoughts that I am not worthy? Do I really believe these thoughts that I can never do anything good in my life? Are these the thoughts that, describe who I am down deep into my spirit? And if you're a Christian, this is not who you are. We are defined in Christ. We are defined by the gospel. Read the words of God to yourself. Hallelujah. Second question you want to ask yourself is, do I believe I am worthy of love as I am? By the way, everybody is worthy of love. Spoiler alert. Everybody is worthy of love. Even the murderer is worthy of love because Jesus loved each and every one of us. God loved us, and how do we know this? He gave his only begotten son to die for us. That is the message of the gospel. That is the message of love. Now, love isn't necessarily all approving. Love isn't necessarily all approving, but love loves everyone despite their flaws. So even with your flaws, you need to recognize yourself as somebody who deserves love. So ask yourself, do you recognize yourself as that person, or you are in the opposite camp? The next question you want to ask yourself is, must I be perfect for others to approve of me? In other words, must you attain the level of godhood that is perfection before anybody can approve of you? You understand? Sometimes you meet people who they want to wear a dress the perfect way. They want to wear a shoe the perfect way. This thing must shine the exact same way. The right size, not too big, not too small. Everything must be perfect. Everything must be straight and narrow. And we always like to think that all of these people have OCD, but sometimes some OCDs are rooted in this insecurity that is imposter syndrome. So you want to ask yourself these questions. And lastly, this is the true coping mechanism. After you've identified the voice, create a counter voice. Create a counter voice. Question your thoughts. Are these thoughts rational? Are they factual? Are they charged with insecurities? You want to ask yourself those questions. Secondly, share your feelings with people you trust. Share those feelings of insecurity with people you trust. Obviously, do not overshare. I emphasize, do not overshare, but share those feelings of insecurity with people that you trust. Thirdly, assess your abilities. What exactly have you learned over the years? What exactly do you actually know how to do? Things you've done, tell you the things that you can do. So assess your abilities. Focus on others. Focus on others. Give people compliments. You understand? Appreciate other people's growth. Don't become jealous. You understand? I know this might seem like as if I'm saying compare yourself. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying focus on giving value to others. You understand? And when you give that value and people appreciate that value, accept that appreciation. You understand? Do not reject it. Don't reject people's love. Accept them. Next is take baby steps. Obviously, you can't just, from here to here, boom, boom, bada, bam, bada, bam, bada, bam, boom, boom. Hey, insecurity cured. No, that's not actually how this thing works. You take baby steps. Everything I'm saying, you take baby steps. Lastly, Stop comparison, and the best way to do this that I've noticed is use social media moderately. Many people like to say social media is not real life, but I beg to differ, because wherever human beings go to, it automatically turns into real life. Now, social media is a place where many aspects of our life goes on. That is where we chat with our friends, that's where we get our jobs, that's where we work for some of us. Social media has become a backbone to our society. Now, there's no way you can continue to deny reality and say social media is no longer real life. It is as real as it can get for many of us. We do so much online that to say it's not real life is a lie. And when we say it's not real life, we deny the effect it has on us. So acknowledge that social media is a part of your life, is a part of our reality now, but use it moderately. You control it, it doesn't control you. And the very best advice I'll give is acknowledge your feelings. Don't hide away from them. Don't bury them. Acknowledge those feelings, because the more you bury them, the more they keep to compile. And when they compile one day, the space that you're using to bury them, the hole that you're burying them in, the entire 7 feet will get filled up and they will spill out. And when they spill out, we call that an eruption, and you don't want an eruption. So acknowledge those feelings and walk them out. Work on them one by one. Remember, baby steps, baby. Baby steps. Also, have people you trust. Again, share your feelings with people that you trust. Okay, thank you very much for listening to the end of this episode. I hope you understand what imposter syndrome is, what causes it, what types you understand, and how to combat it. If you want to talk to somebody, you can, find a good friend of yours to talk to, or you can DM me and we'll talk. I'm always available. Also, make sure you share this episode with your friends. Make sure you share this episode on your social medias. Remember to use the hashtag #TheFluidGang. Also, don't forget the link in the description or the show notes of this episode. That's the one link to rule them all, the one link to do everything, to follow us on our socials, to sign up to the newsletter, which you need to do, and to support us on Shukran. You understand? Support us on Shukran. But even if you cannot support financially, we appreciate the shares, appreciate the likes, appreciate the comments and the feedback. Keep them coming, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.